Well, boys, let's talk about some more differences on the 6.7 Cummins and the 6.7 Powerstroke. The other thing I wanted to more or less focus and zoom in on, at this point I'll just go one section at a time, is solely the powertrain. Let's just talk about just the transmission and the engine. Now, keep in mind, we're still comparing 2017 versus 2017, 6.7 versus 6.7. And on the transmission side, let's eliminate Chrysler. Because what I'm talking about is solely from experience, and I have very minimal experience with Chrysler because Chrysler can't build transmissions for jack when it comes to their working trucks. They themselves advocate that and admit it, because in none of their cabin chassis will you find a Chrysler transmission. Either it's the G56 6-speed manual or it's the Ison. So, want to underline that, focus on just the Ison. So, 6.7 Cummins with an Ison, and then the Ford's engine and the Ford's transmission. They only have one. So, now, let's talk about the Ford. 6.7 Ford is, I think they call it Scorpion engine, quote unquote, the new million-mile engine is what I'm hearing a lot. Guys, I can't say jack about it if it's going to make 1,000,000 miles or not. What I am going to say is that it's built in-house by Ford. Ford has really shaping up their performance skills just all around. Ford has kicked it up a few notches. And where I'm coming from is their sports cars. I love fast cars, guys. And then the more and more I start comparing the Mustangs, I know it's a horrible example, but it's there. Ford builds their own engines on those as well. And those little boogers, those little engines are really kicking it up. So, you guys are going to say, Paul, you're an idiot. Why are you comparing diesel and gas and Mustang and a pickup? Guys, I'm just solely focusing on Ford and their level of engineering at this point. That is all that I'm doing. So, anywho's, thumbs up to Ford for that. You know, when I was growing up, Ford was bottom of the list, pretty far down. Unless Shelby built something, they really had nothing to show for. You know, whatever. I'm just gonna take it right here. At that point, you know, guys, I'm gonna have to put this thing on pause. People calling me and whatnot. Hold on tight. Anyhow, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. I was just getting too many phone calls. I had to answer them. As I was saying about the Ford, Ford as a company whole, they've really kicked it up, and they're doing a lot better lately than they have in the past. So, okay, don't blow up the comment section saying, Paul, you don't know crap. I'm just generalizing it, just as a sum, as a whole company. Going back to diesels. We with the Ford 6.7 Powerstroke, we have minimal experience. And what I mean minimal, I mean only 20,000 miles compared to combined on the 6.7 Cummins. I think we're about a little over 1,000,000 miles on that 6.7 Cummins. Not a sole engine, just combined miles, you know. If you add up all the pickups I have and all the mileage racked up on them, I'll be about 1,000,000. So that's why I'm saying it's minimal. Anyways, so as far as the truck, as far as the engine goes, I started talking about Ford. I'll continue talking about Ford. I'll come back to Cummins later. That 1,000,000-mile Scorpion engine, like as they like to call it, is not a bad engine. I can't point fingers at it and say it's a bad engine. I just feel like, due to the fact that they have so many plastics, due to the fact that they have so many hoses running back and forth and everywhere and up every, you know what, I think they set themselves up for some failure. I really think so. I mean, what does it really take to overheat an engine? What does it take to grenade an engine? It doesn't take much. It might be a hose clamp, it might be a fitting, it might be a hose itself. So you guys understand where I'm headed with this, right? when you, I know it's a long shot, but when you pop a hood on a semi-truck, the simplicity of a semi-truck is what attracts buyers to it. Because, I mean, people want bare bones under that hood. The less hoses, clamps, plastics, hoses, I mean, less stuff to go wrong. Any way you spin it, heat destroys rubber. Heat destroys plastics. And no matter how good of a plastic you have. And I have to give it to Ford. They have some good plastic under that hood. But I don't know, man. I can't trust plastic all that much. Even though I should really reconsider, because I have a German car and it pushes over 750 torque. And if you guys ever noticed how much rubber Germans, how much trust their, man, I can't even talk. How much Germans trust their rubber mounts is pretty impressive. And the driveline is what I wanted to underline. The driveline that comes out of the, what would you want to call it? The yoke that comes out of the transmission bolts onto a rubber piece. And then that rubber piece bolts onto your driveline, so it works as a buffer. You know, takes out the vibration, takes away those hard hits. That's rubber, man. It really blows me away. Back to Ford we go. Ford and their plastics. I think the owners of Ford at high mileage are going to have to pay the price on that. So, you know, what I'm going to advise my people to do with their Ford is about 200, 150, 200,000. Those plastics to get thoroughly inspected, and those plastics that are really close to the manifold, you know, turbo, change those out as much as we can. And there's some plastic hoses. Try to convert those to rubber hoses. You know, a good rubber hose. So that's in my opinion, the biggest problem that Ford owners are going to be fighting with, or we're going to be fighting with at higher mileage. You know, a crack here and nick there, a crease there is all going to add up, and it's sooner or later going to start costing. It's going to cost downtime. It's going to cost funds, and I mean the upfront cost of buying another clip or buying another hose is one of my least worries. My primarily and only focus right now is the fact that one of those blow on a hill climb somewhere out middle of nowhere is my biggest concern here. And of course, I'm a Cummins guy, and high respect to Cummins for that. They keep it minimal. I mean, if you compare a 12 valve to a modern 6.7, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more little hoses and wires running. But guys, nowhere near, I mean, not even half of what Ford got going on under their hood. And that will cost money. Not upfront money. That will cost the owner downtime at some point. Unless, you know, every 100, well, I shouldn't say 100. Every 150 to 200,000, the guy goes through them all and replaces them, or, as I said, converts them from plastic to rubber hoses, from as much, maybe even go as far as taking out those plastic clips, mechanisms that lock themselves in, and converting them to brass fittings with clamps, and, you know, work out a way where you could eliminate plastic as much as possible. And that would be my biggest concern, is the plastic. And then secondary, you know, the hoses running everywhere, but that's by far a less red flag to me than those plastics. Guys, plastic is not a good thing under that hood. I wish I had two trucks to, right now, I wish I had both trucks at the yard so I could take pictures under the hood. But just go on Google, look up 2017 Ford, you know, 6.7 Power Stroke, engine bay, or, you know, hood, open hood, or, I don't know, get a picture of the engine inside the engine bay of a Dodge and a Ford, and that's a problem you'll see on the photo. But in person, like in real life, you're gonna be like, yeah. Now, I don't mean to bash on my brother-in-law, but I feel like he didn't click all the way what I was talking about until he personally saw himself. Alright guys, I gotta put you on pause once again. Alright boys, I'm back. I don't think it's gonna take a rocket scientist to figure out that this videos consist of multi-videos of polls. People just keep calling me, man. They just keep calling me and bugging me. Well, they're not bugging me. I got companies to run, so that's why people are calling me. But anyways, back to the point. Once my brother-in-law popped the hood on one of them Fords and realized what I was talking about, that's where I left you guys off on the last one. That's what I remember. Is the fact that he's like, holy crap, there is a lot of hoses. You know, the more you look into it, and if you're mechanically inclined in any way, shape, or form, you'll understand what fundamentals are and how much greater of a risk you're running with the Ford than you are with the Dodge, or excuse me, Cummins breaking down because of a little clip cracking or a little hose cracking on you. This heat is gonna make them brittle over time. So yeah, guys, as far as those engines go, that's probably my biggest concern. That is my biggest concern I got. As far as longevity goes, you know, I've mentioned in the previous video that, hey, this engine will... Guys, I'm really sorry, I shut down my radar. This engine, meaning the 6.7 Power Stroker, rotates on average twice as much. Keeps the rubs higher twice as much when climbing. You know, when you're going downhill, you know, it has to pick up the RPM twice as much compared to a Cummins 6.7 to maintain, you know, boosting power or braking power. We're talking about pulling or stopping. Boosting meaning pulling, or exhaust braking meaning stopping that way. And when I'm talking and comparing, I'm talking identically set up trucks. We're not saying Joe Schmo pulled this much and he claims he pulled this much and Billy Bob did this much. No, guys, I've personally got into that Ford after one of my drivers said, this thing's a pile of junk, I don't want to drive it, keep your keys kind of attitude. I personally loaded up my old Ford on that new Ford. That's why in one of my videos you see me, that's why you see the new Ford hauling an old Ford. I personally went out, loaded my Ford onto that new Ford, and I went and towed it. And I mean, I know the way my Dodges tow, and I know what's going to happen, what's going to follow. So trailer being, you know, 6.5, 7,000, let's just say an easy calculation, 7,000 pound trailer, 7,000 pound pickup. That's 14,000 behind that Ford, the new Ford. And I know what my trucks do, my trucks as in the 6.7 Cummins, do with 14,000. And I can only imagine how much worse or how much better one would do in a situation than the other. And based off of that situation, you know, it didn't take much to realize that pulling hills, slight inclines at a heavier throttle, I wasn't moving the way I would with my Cummins. I wasn't moving with that Power Stroke the way I would with my Cummins, and vice versa on the exhaust brake. I mean, that exhaust brake is a joke, guys, compared to the Cummins exhaust brake. Uncomparable. Does it hold the speed? Yes. I feel like it includes the brakes as well. I feel like it. Don't quote me on this. It's just what I'm speculating. That's not a fact. But that exhaust brake is nowhere near as powerful and strong as the Cummins is. Maybe one day Power Stroke will get that straight. But what I gotta say is the Power Stroke, thank you to the transmission. Something I haven't talked too much about the transmission. I should talk about it. Thank you to the transmission. The Power Stroke has a lot easier time getting from 0 to 10 miles or 0 to 15 miles than the Cummins does. And I feel like it's solely because of the transmission being properly done on the Power Stroke. So props to Ford for building a good transmission. You know, Ford has impressed me, like I've said, you know, 20 minutes ago. According to this video, 20 minutes ago. But anyways, well, not even according to this video, probably 10 minutes if you do video length. Ford transmission, let's get back to that later. Now the engine, back to the engine. You know, the engine has an easier time getting off a dead spot, and then it struggles. You know, anything after that, it struggles in comparison to the Cummins. Now, drag racing. If you were to put the hammer down, just absolute hammer down on the Ford and on the Dodge, I feel like the Ford will outpull the Dodge at open throttle. This is a speculation. This is not facts. When I say things and I don't mention this is speculation, those are facts. Now this is speculation. I feel like if I full throttle the Ford and I full throttle the Dodge, I feel like the Dodge will lose in a drag race with the goosenecks being attached to those two pickups. But how long is that Ford gonna last, guys? Not long at all, dude. You can't just full throttle, you know, 500,000, 300,000. Just not gonna do it. I feel like if you full throttle that engine, I mean anything, maxing it out, overheating, it's just not gonna last. 50, 60,000, tranny will be grenaded, engine might be blown. You can't do that. You can't keep that pedal all the way down. Another little side note, we'll come back to it later, hopefully. 6.7 Cummins is a medium duty engine. 6.7 Power Stroke has started to make me believe that it's a medium duty engine. I just don't see the torque, guys. How can you get a medium duty engine? Just the torque's not there, just the low end, you know? So back to what I was saying. The Power Stroke, on power alone, it has more power than the Cummins, in my honest opinion. But that power is only at high revs, high RPM. You know, that power is only hauling ass at wide open throttle. So you do quarter throttle or half throttle on that Power Joker, sorry, Power Stroke, you're not gonna pull that grade the way the Cummins is, you know? That's why I always refer to the Cummins as a little tractor, because you just give it quarter throttle and you just move along and you keep pucking along and you're just pulling that hill, you know? You just puck along and that's it, you know? Now, as far as the power goes, I feel like I've covered it pretty good. So, Ford has more power, like a recap. Ford has more power, but Cummins has better position. So the power comes in sooner on the Cummins. Therefore, the Cummins is a hands down winner when it comes to towing, because it has that low end. It has, you know, you give it a steady quarter throttle and just hold the throttle there and just, you know, just like a tractor. It's beautiful. It just pucks along, just, you know, ding a ding a ding ding ding, moves along and moves your stuff. Where the Ford, it's you can't do quarter throttle. You can't. And I mean, I'm not talking about just getting the truck moving. I'm talking about keeping the truck moving. A little incline, you got to give it more throttle. You got to make that transmission downshift. You got to give it more revs. In my honest translation, in the way it translates to my brains, the higher, the more you spin that engine. Now, not in all categories, not in all territory. The more you spin that engine, the more wear it endures. Okay. Now, don't get this mixed up. You see a hill, well, Paul said the higher I spin the engine, the more wear. No, you see a hill, rev that engine as high as it needs to be revved, you know. But in a global sense, you know, don't lug that engine. But let's just say, taking a Cummins, let's take the truck that I'm driving right now, my personal truck, you know. Let's say I'm hooked up to 15,000 pounds total behind my truck. You know, I could climb most hills at 17, fine, 1,800, as high as I need to go. 1,800, I could just pull that hill and not even sweat it. You know, I feel like I could do it at not 16, I could do it at 17, possibly 16, but hands down, 1,800, I could pull any grade with 15,000 behind me. You can't do that with the Ford. You could try to do it, try to lock it into that gear and hold that gear, but you're gonna be stressing the piss out of that engine. So where does this lead us to? You gotta run the engine for what it was designed for. You guys are gonna blow up my comment section by now if you haven't waited out this long. Ford was just meant to be revved higher. Therefore, in my brain, it's a correlation to shorter life. You know, what do our trucks see on average? You know, they gross 24, 25. You subtract 8,000 pounds out of that, and that's what they're pulling day in and day out. So if you take 25, you know, if you take on average 25 minus 8, you're left with what, 17? That's average. Realistically, some of those guys got CDLs. Well, they're gonna see 30, 32 on a gross. You know, Ford's done 28 a few times already. Now these aren't true and tried stats and facts, but you know, guys claiming he got 7.3. He wasn't even at 28,000 pounds. He wasn't even at 26. I think he was like at 20. I'm assuming he was hauling ass on that brand new Ford, but that's only assumptions. You know, the truck does have bigger tires, therefore it's gonna lie on that. It's gonna lie on that, on those numbers, but they're not that much bigger. Anywho, so I feel like I've covered that engine. Now transmission, man, I feel like I need to make another video. Let me know in the comment section. I'll post this video as one, but I feel like I should separate them in the future. Now, as far as the transmission goes, you know, guys, I can't say anything negative about that Ford transmission. Why? Because if that Ison was hooked up to that Ford would be a pile of junk when it comes to towing. Why? You say why? Because the Ison locks up way too quick and way too easy. And if you don't got low end torque, that Ison transmission is gonna piss you off. You're gonna be angry. You know, this truck, shoot, man, the transmission locks up. So, and here's the prime example where you're gonna be really ticked off at the transmission. You're like, for example, right now I'm doing 40 miles an hour, right? I'm at 1400 RPM. I'm in regular mode. Now, if I was in tow haul mode, like I'll turn it on right now. Well, it's really not down. There you go, downshift. You know, I'm holding 1750, 1800 right now at 40. Now, there's really no one behind me. Now I'm gonna slow down. I don't want to lie to you guys. If I slow down, I mean, guys, I'm running. I slowed down to 30, okay? That transmission is still locked into, let's see what gear, 3rd gear. If I slow down even more, it holds freaking 3rd gear. Obviously, it's gonna downshift. No, unlocked it. Here, I need to slow down some more. What I'm trying to say, I want to give you exact mileage and number on the transmission. So 2nd gear, it holds 2nd gear. Like, I could slow down in 2nd gear and it will hold it at 1400. Guys, you lock up at 1400 a power stroke, you are in deep trouble. Okay, guys, back I go. Look at that, it just freaking locks it up, 1450, drags it out. Boom, next gear. You guys can hear it probably in the mic how the tranny shifts. You can't do that with the Ford because of the Ford transmission not locking up. It's heating itself up to the max. It's running crazy numbers in my books. I mean, I've seen 230 on a simple little pull on the highway. You start pulling, you know, heavier weight through town, you're gonna see a lot higher than 230. I guarantee you, and I know that's a fact. But the Ford transmission has to do that. There's no way around it because that engine can't take a 1400 RPM lockup and pull it out. You know, it can't take a 1500 lockup and pull it out. Cummins can. That's why it makes it a beautiful combination. So Cummins is a low end, slow and steady engine, and Ison is a slow and steady tranny, a solid heavy duty it's a medium duty, heavy duty in my world transmission. That's what makes it such a good combo. Going back to the Ford transmission, because of my likes and dislikes, I by far like the Ison more than the Ford. But that's just a preference at this point, because Ford's transmission never had the opportunity to lock up and just try to pull out that gear. I'm pretty sure if Ison wouldn't lock up and, you know, kept, you know, what a half lock up or whatever you want to call it. It's not like it's completely spinning. freely, but it's not locked up, so it's burning itself up. Bottom line, anytime a transmission is not locked up, it's burning itself up. Therefore, are those temperature numbers. You're going to blow up my comment section saying, retard, that's the way the transmission works. No, that's the way the transmission has to work with that engine for that engine to be capable of doing what it's supposed to do. It needs those revs. It's a V8. It's not an inline six. It's a V8. It has to do those revs and be able to pull that weight. You know, oh god, man, I just love the way this thing just locks up and pulls it. But anyways, if you take, like I said 1,000 times by now, if you take that transmission and retune it for it to lock up, you are in a world of trouble if that transmission locks up at 14 or 1500 with 20,000 pounds behind you. You're just not going to go anywhere. You're going to be hitting that gas pedal, and if that transmission's quick, it will have to unlock itself, allow the slippage, let the RPMs be brought up to 3,000 for you to have a steady go at it, you know, steady pull. I'm talking about 20,000 pounds behind the truck. So, therefore, it has to be slipping. So that's my biggest problem with Ford, is they're running high temps. I know I'm blabbing a lot, guys, but to some people, this is very important. So I'm gonna underline some of this stuff. Therefore, that's the only thing I don't like about the Ford transmission, running such high numbers. You know, I know this doesn't mean much, but I'm driving empty right now. Trans is at 165. You know, coolant's at 183. Well, let's leave the coolant alone. Let's just stay on the trans part. Let me turn off tow haul because this thing is just holding at 1800. I mean, 1400. You know, I give it an eighth, and voila, here I'm going. I'm just hauling tail. Anyways, Ford transmission, in my honest opinion, not with a lot of experience, minimal experience, I feel like it's a good transmission. Solely because I've seen, I've done a little bit of research of previous generation of these transmissions. I mean, they've always done okay. You know, they were never bashed and trashed on like Chryslers were. Because Chryslers are crap transmissions. When it comes to heavy stuff, they're just crap. Anyways, rewind the tank. Let's not go into Chrysler. I might make a video one day about Chrysler because I feel like some of you guys got mixed feelings about them. Fine, I'll say one last thing. Chrysler transmissions don't self-destruct. They just can't handle what I do with my trucks. Anyways, so the Ford. Bottom line, seems like a decent transmission. If I had to buy a Ford, I wouldn't be worried about the transmission. Because of the high temps, I would be watching that oil really carefully and really closely. Because, I mean, y'all know that you overheat that transmission once, and that oil's good as shot. So, as far as that transmission goes for the Ford, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Bottom line, just watch the quality of oil. Do oil changes accordingly, not just by the book or whatever. Just, you know, you smell burnt, you see burnt, change it out. That might even be too late, you know. Now let's go to Icense, since we're talking about oil changes. I try to do my Icense, or do my services on Icense at 30,000 miles. That's what I do. 30,000 miles, plus or minus. It's usually a little more. It just depends, you know. If a guy with a CDL has been inside that truck for a while, I know he's hauled more weight. And, you know, that's another topic. You just go out and get permits and push a little bit more weight. Don't overdo the legal limits of axles and all that. Whatever, that's a different topic. I push more than 26 in some of these pickups. You know, I do the rear ends a little bit sooner. I do the transmission a little bit sooner. And they served me well. I'm about to post a video, 300,000 on a 2014 Ram. First real problem that I've endured with that truck. Actuator on a turbo went out. Electrical part of the turbo. Nothing that had to do anything with my maintenance. Anywho, so back to the Ison, man, guys. I'm sorry, I went off topic there. Back to the Ison. I just can't say enough of good things from a standpoint of towing with an Ison. Now, if you're a regular Joe and you just haul your rear end around, You probably don't need an Ison, and you probably don't need a Cummins. You need something of a peppier truck. Look into the GMCs, look into the Fords. They're quicker. They're just a quicker, snappier truck. Cummins is a slow and steady little tractor. Okay. Recap on Ison. I can't say anything bad about them. Or, you know, potentially this might be bad for some. They're a slow transmission. They don't respond as quick as other transmissions. That's it, you know. Good thing about them, you guys heard enough about good things about them. But that's about it, man. I gotta wrap up this video because this video is going way too long. Guys, let me know in the comment section if I need to next time keep these videos shorter, because I feel like on this one I probably should have divided the engine and the transmission. I still might do it, we'll see. Nah, I'm not gonna do it. I'll let you guys have this whole video and let me know if you guys want it all divided up. Anyways, guys, as always, behave out there and have a mighty fine day.